is, do you have any tattoos? Obviously, you do.
I'm sleeved up.
Yeah.
I mean, I have one big one. That's what people are like, do you have tattoos? I'm like, I have one. And then they look at my arm and they're baffled by it. But that's how I look at it, is a tattoo's a story.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first, I wouldn't even say the first, but this is a third of my story. So every time, we discussed earlier, every time I would accomplish something small or big in the brand, sorry, I would try to market with a tattoo.
No way.
And what I learned was I didn't want a lot of random stuff, so I had to figure out ways to tie it together. And as the story grew, God was, and I still think, is the best artist. So he painted a picture where I was like, oh, okay, cool. Now I have enough to tie this together. So it started slow, and as we all know, life moves really fast at one point. And before I knew it, I had a full sleeve. And like I said earlier, I'm done for now. I'm done for now. That's it. You know, if I get to that second chapter, or we'll say the second third, then I'll start again. But at this stage in the game, I'm content, which is rare. Anybody that has tattoos, if you ask them, they're never content.
Yeah. So as far as ink goes, Antonino, he's lying. He's not going to stop.
Yeah.
It's coming.
I'm on pause. I'm on a big pause. He's right. I'm not going to stop. I'm on a pause.
Yeah. I think that you said about the storytelling piece. You're capturing that story, through a different medium. And that was kind of my thing. I worked in the corporate world for X amount of years working with architects and engineers. And this really wasn't like acceptable in that community. And now you can do what you want to do. And it's kind of cool because I think your vibiness, if you will, if that's a word, kind of ties right in with everything else that's happening here.
Yeah.
Part of the mission and everything else. It really is.
It's a blessing. But I just had a dialogue with somebody the other day. I think that what you love is who you are. So they're intertwined. They're never mutually exclusive. And at a certain point in life, kids are told to separate things, have balance. It's like, I don't want balance. I want everything. I want exactly what I want. I want to feel what I want. I want to feel everything, because everything's a teacher.
Yeah.
So if those are always intertwined, I'm always learning. It's painful at times, we know, but that's what leads to a lot of the tattoos. You mark it and you move on.
Yeah.
I'll look down at a certain tattoo and be like, okay, all right, that's there forever. That memory's always there. But I got things to do. I got to forge forward, et cetera, et cetera.
So those emotions and memories and things that make us who we are and what we are, on your social media feed, at least on Instagram, checking things out, you've got these energetic and really cool photos that tell and share part of a story, but you've got these inspirational quotes too. Do you develop those quotes, or you repurpose those? Where are you coming up with these things?
Most of them, like I said, God is an incredible artist, and they're just experiences. And I'm a firm believer that we should never waste an experience.
Right.
So if I was the first to have it, I'm just sharing my version of it. You'll encounter it in your own way. But there may be something that I picked up on that I would be ignorant if I didn't share. To say, hey, you're going to fall, but maybe I could put the pillow down first.
Right.
And that's why I share those things, because I started as of lately to label them. And I didn't know this, but people go onto that page, and it's the most humbling thing in the world, and say I had a bad day, and pick the video that they want to watch to feel what they need to feel to keep on going.
It's incredible. Really
it's
is.
humbling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a great platform to be able to do that and share with so many people. You have over 30-something thousand followers, which I know on planet Earth, that's not a lot, but I'll tell you what, that is great reach.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think at the end of the day, when you walk away, if you can have a positive impact on somebody, that's really what it's all about. Antonino, real quick, how did you guys meet? Could you share a little piece of that story? Why our butts are in these seats right now?
Absolutely. So first of all, I have to say, I swear, Shawn, by the end of this show, or this whole podcast series that we do, I might be convinced to get a tattoo, because everyone always talking about the tattoos. It's like inspiring. But yeah, so Jared and I met because we have a mutual connection. So this guy named Lee, great dude.
Incredible guy.
Yeah, it really is. Really energetic, fun guy. I was talking to him about the podcast and, saying we're looking for guests, this and that. And he was like, you got to meet Jared. And I was like, all right, I'm in. I was like, I think that day he literally like, here's a phone number. He like sent a group message between the two of us and was like, hey, how about you guys chat? And we chatted on the phone and I was like,
yeah, I think I was sitting right up there.
Yeah. But he was showing me your brand. He was saying like the brand's really cool. And he was saying that the, you yourself, kind of have like that, he used the term influencer,
I hate that term. I think influencers are the easily influenced people because they tend to do everything for others. And it's like, that's good, but you have to be yourself in doing so.
Right.
So I want to always I have it tattooed. If we're on it, stay true. And I stay true to the little kid me. I don't care who it is, what level of authority you have. I'm doing it for me. Now, I respect the authority, but also you're not going to redirect the path that I want. And that's the thing where I step away from that influencer label, because an influencer is just trying to do exactly that, influence. No, I'm trying to use the verb he used earlier, which is impact. That's what I want. I want to leave a situation, a room, a person better than what I think I found it. And again, that's all relative to people's definition of better, but that's the goal. And I don't get to decide what I am, so whatever label someone projects upon me, good or bad, okay, that's what it is for you. But for me, I just look at it as I'm an impact dealer. That's how I am. Like, I deal impact. That's my end goal of any situation, is to leave it with impact.
So with that being said, your brand, how did you kind of come up with this brand name or anything like that? Like tell us a little bit about the story behind this. Like, was it, just come to you, or is like a significance behind it? What's the deal with that?
So it's a long story, but I'll give a brief synopsis.
We got 3-4 hours.
Hey, I don't want to bore anybody, but no, I'm here for it. I was just always a kid that, like I just said, I had to get respect before I gave it, and we all know that most kids aren't respected. So I just did whatever I wanted all the time. Got kicked out of class, challenged authority, because I wanted to see, are you worthy of me looking up to you before I just give you the veil of, oh, I'm influenced by you.
Sure.
Based off of the influencer thing. And I learned that I really wasn't influenced by a lot. I just was influenced by what God made. If man made it, I didn't value it as much. So I would go outside and just look at things, the trees, listen, see, and I'll be like, I want to draw that. And I started to draw. And through that, I had a neighbor, rest in peace. His name was Victor Curdy, and we called him Uncle Victor. And he was a mechanical engineer, I believe. He had a multitude of degrees, but all in engineering. And every year for my birthday, he would bring me a book. And it wasn't a book to read, but it was about trains. It was engineering based, aircraft, cars. And I fell in love with cars. So he would come over and my parents would have dinner, would eat, and I'd sit outside and he'd be like, close your eyes. And he'd be like, what motor is that? And I'd start to realize what the motors were based off of sound. So then he'd bring me the Road and Track edition every year of what car was coming out, all of their versions. I got obsessed with them. So I could tell you, oh, well, that's a Camry, this is the SE, this is this version, this model, this option, everything. So now to this day, it's stuck in my head where I'll look at a car. What's that?
What just went past?
Oh, that was a bus. I just heard that. That was a bus. I didn't even need to look at that one. Now, mind you, I haven't honed that skill in probably 20 years, but that got me into the art of craftsmanship. And then I was like, why do I like this car? And from there, I got introduced to sneakers. Okay. And at that stage in the game, it was game over. I found my love. And I would draw and I would draw. So I was probably 9, 10, and I told my dad, I'm like, I'm gonna work for Nike, or I forget. It was a big brand. So I would draw and write them a letter and be like, Dad, send these. They're gonna want these. Just a kid being a dream. My dad, God bless him, he was like, yeah, they are. I was like, whatever, shut up here. I'll put them in the mail. And lo and behold, him, my mother, everybody's surprised. We get stuff back. And it was And One. I don't know if you remember And One back in the day. That's when they started to rise up, and they had the shirts. It was like they were jokes, like street jokes at the park that they put on their shirts, and then that turned into the And One mixtape tour. And every time a new mixtape came out, they would send it to me. So as a kid, I didn't know how to say thanks. We didn't have, text messages and all those things. So I'd write a letter back with a couple drawings of shoes, and then they'd send me more. And that gave me this confidence that I was good at what I did. Whether I was or not, it grew, and it grew. And I knew I always wanted to do that, but building a brand, making clothes, making anything as a kid, if you don't have somebody in your family or a direct relationship, you don't know where to go. You don't know where to start. So I just kept doing what I was doing. And around 9/11, things were rough in my family, finances, etc. And my uncle and dad found a distant cousin at a wedding. It was right before 9/11 they met, and he owned a company that was like wholesale, clothing, blanks. Now they refer to them as blanks. And they ended up buying like 10,000 hats. I'll never forget. They were a red brim, a white hat, and they had an American flag on the left. And those dudes hustled, man. Like, I learned how to hustle from them. They'll go door to door, organizations, put the organization on the front. And I'm like, this is cool. Like, you're creating, but you're giving someone the opportunity to create themselves. You give it to them, and you're making money for this?
Right.
And you don't show up at 9 and leave at 5, and you don't have a boss, and you do what you want to do. I'm like, this is cool. So God bless my uncle. He found a heat press on eBay maybe, or I don't know, like a corner store market. You know how they have flea markets and things? So right. I don't know where he got it. I was still young. And he asked me one time if I wanted to press shirts. I don't know what that means, but he would get heat transfers, and I'd press the shirts, and I loved it. But I wanted to learn everything, so I threw myself into that more. Then I ended up going to college, and I was like, okay, college, this is not for me. Drop out of college, move to New York, model, and I'm like, this ain't it either. Come back. I end up helping my dad build his business up. I'm like, I can't do this forever. So what do? I go back into my sketches as a little kid. And when I was at college, I was associated with the basketball team. So we were in Iowa, and there was a video game that came out, Call of Duty.
Oh, yeah.
And one of my teammates, this was like right when PS4s came out. So it was like 2007. And he had an Xbox, and he brought it on the road. And we were playing in the Drake Realty tournament. And he was like complaining about a camper or something. I'm like, what is that? His name was Steven Woods, Sticks. Incredible dude. And I'm like, what is a camper? And I remember talking to somebody, and I'm like, dude, you're a camper playing this video game, blah, blah, blah. And when I went back into the sketches, I remember that dialogue. And one of the sketches, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, NOLAC. No one likes a camper. No lacking. NOLA. I got it. Like, that's awesome. I got it. And I wrote that out. And now to this day, I don't use the camper because it's too long for an elevator pitch. No lack is exactly it. Never lacking. Period. Right to the point. Most people get it. And if not, I tell them it's not for them, because most people, when you tell them it's not for them, get a little chip on their shoulder. And you know what they do? They go research themselves. And at that stage, I'm like, okay, if you're willing to learn about it, then this is for you. If not, I'm not here to educate you on this. I'm a bad salesman in that way. I want everything to be real, organic, and genuine. If you like it, you like it. If not, I'm not offended at all. This isn't for you. Like you said, there's billions of people.
Right.
That's it.
Let's take a step back in that Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the story, I think the man's name was Victor.
Yep, Victor Curdy.
Victor. So this is my take from where you're going with this whole thing, is this guy invested in you.
Oh, yeah.
He invested some time, some care, right? And kind of shaped you. And I don't know what's your home life and things like that, but you mentioned dad a couple of times, things like that.
Yeah.
You've had people help you and shape you and get you to here. But you also had, obviously, drive. You had incentive. You had other qualities. You had this entrepreneurial spirit that I think a lot of people have, but they don't know where to take it. They don't know where to go with this. And I think you found a way to roll that in to a lot of really neat things and actually turn it into something. How did you, so I'm so glad you explained that the story behind
that was actually an awesome story, by the way.
I was wondering about that, and I'm thinking and I'm reading on the website. I couldn't find it. So you really did a nice job of laying that out, how this came out. And there's no super magic in it. It's just something cool, right? And it's something that you can remember, and it rolls off the tongue easy. And I'm sure because it's a really short name, the domain was really easy. And
no, someone had it.
No way.
And to this day, NOLAC.com, someone has.
Or something, or what
no, I reached out and they wanted like 30 grand. I think I sold my car and my shoes and only had 3 grand to start. I'm like, you could have it. So you know what I did? I was like, you know what? I want this to be about unity. So I just typed in NOLAC Nation. Yeah. I'm like, you can have your website. It will sit there forever. You want to be greedy? I'm still going to do what I want to do. And that's the biggest thing, like you said. I don't know if it was always drive, but it was more so fear. Like I was running. I was like, no, I don't want to be those things. I don't know what I could become, but I know what I don't want to become.
Right.
And that's what my drive stemmed from. I didn't want to be a 9-to-5er. I saw how kids in school were treated and how you had to be a conformist and everybody was getting this cookie cutter treatment. And I was like, I'm different. Why are you making me the same?
Right.
And again, you'll hear that in a lot of the things that I say in my messaging. Now, I'm not saying that that's for everybody. I know it's not. I'm different.
Right.
And I'm not saying that where people are like, I'm built it. No, I'm just different. We all are. But mine was, I didn't necessarily always need the bumpers when I bowled. Where a lot of people need the bumpers when they bowl. Mine is like, no, let me know what it feels like to hit the gutter. That's the only way I'm not going to need the bumpers. And like you said, people in my life saw that. God bless my parents. You brought them up. They hated me. I don't mean that literally. But if I didn't understand something as a kid, I would sit there and be like, well, why? Why? I got kicked out of class. You know how many parent-teacher meetings my parents are in? Your kid's a troublemaker. And my dad, God bless him, I don't know. I mean, he let me have it when we got home. But he was like, no. I mean, my kid just asked why. If you don't have an answer, then tell him you don't have an answer.
Right.
But that's where I started to question authority, because we live in a system that a lot of people have a title, but they don't have the knowledge to back that up. And we're told not to challenge, but if we don't challenge, how can we progress as a society? In anything. It's in sports. I want my players to challenge what I tell them because I could be wrong. And then I will learn, which means we all will learn. So I look at it from that perspective.
Absolutely.
That's great perspective. I saw this little video clip on social media. It was like yesterday. And maybe you guys have seen it before. There was a guy talking to a group of people, and he showed a clip, and it was a telephone from the early 1900s. And he said, this was the phone 125 years ago. This is the phone now. And then he also showed a car, like an old Model T or A or something. I don't know. It was an old car. And then he showed this really awesome new car. And then showed the education system, a classroom, then 125 years ago, and a classroom now. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, innovation is key.
So this whole ways to learn, ways to share information. We've got all these tools around us. It's interesting to see how all this is going to migrate.
Oh, no.
And I hope it does, and I hope it continues. But it's people like yourself. It reminds me of the when the Mac was introduced, and they threw the sledgehammer at the screen to shatter it. It's the same thing.
Yep.
And I think there's so many profound people that you bump into, like yourself, that have these really cool stories and cool backgrounds that Antonino and I, we want to continue capturing and sharing these things. So love where you're going with your story. What else you got, kid?
Yeah, I mean, I have to just say, like, speaking about the Mac, and, you know, one of my favorite quotes is from Steve Jobs, and he says, it's the people who are crazy enough to believe that they can change the world are the ones that do.
Yep.
And you're exactly right. We talked about this when we first met. It's like, you know, the question I got all the time from my parents and some friends and family is like, well, are you sure you want to leave your 9-to-5 job? Like, it's secure. I'm like, yes, but like, there is a huge risk going out and becoming an entrepreneur. You're going to fail. I had 2 failures before I got to a position where I'm okay. But being willing to take that risk and, you know, kind of being okay with that fear of failure is huge. Because I always say to people, there is the negative side where maybe you don't make any money, maybe you do fail, but then there's also the positive side where you don't know where this thing can go.
Sure.
Yep. You have to be willing to innovate, and you're exactly right about questioning, authority or, the education system, whatever it might be. It's the people who ask the questions who like change the world, who say, this doesn't seem right. This can be different. That's how innovation is key. If we don't innovate, we're toast. I mean, we are toast.
Yep.
So
yep. I read something and I forget the source, but it was along the lines of 20% of the classroom needs to be smarter than the teacher to progress the classroom. And that hit me. Mm-hmm. And I see it all the time in what I do and in my business. One of the best things about having Lee on board with my company, that guy is so much smarter than me.
Right.
So he challenges me. And if I'm not challenged, I'm not going to get better. And I think, like I was saying earlier, people are fearful. I'm running away from being dumb. I'm so scared of not learning something new that I will go to the utmost degree to learn and be in the most uncomfortable scenario to force myself to learn, because we know that comfort will kill that. And we as a society have lived such comfortable lives for so long, we forget what discomfort feels like. So I never want to forget that. I never want to forget what it felt like to be a little kid and say, I'm not sure what tomorrow's going to look like. I'm not sure, what we're eating. I'm not sure how I'm going to get where I'm going to go. And that scared me. But it scared me to move, and it scared me to work, and it scared me to build this Rolodex of skills to attack that fear. And I'm not fearful anymore. I'm not really scared of anything. But it's fun to remind yourself that you were.
Well, that's fundamental right there. So long time ago, I played football. Mm-hmm. And I can remember the first couple of years, like 7th, 8th grade, I don't think we won a game. I don't even know if we scored a touchdown. Okay, and that's no joke. But then we progressed and gelled and ended up only losing a few games over the last 10th through 12th grade. But the takeaway from that is when you lose, it tastes a certain way. Yep. But when you start to win, there's no taste like that. You don't want to go backwards now. And I think it's the same thing when you talk about the learning side of it. There's this desire, this hunger to do more, learn more. And I think it ties to confidence too. These little learning experiences, they're little foundations. You screw up, you run into bad situations, you lose money, all these different things. And then all of a sudden you start to layer all of those experiences and pull it into something. Then all of a sudden you start to win and it feels really good. Yep. Yep. And I think when I look around here with the apparel and things like that you have, explain how the apparel side is tying to the rest of this mission. Because it's really cool stuff, and I like the style.
Yeah.
And but there's a lot of apparel out there.
Oh yeah.
How is yours different because of your message?
So we've all taken a road trip, right?
Absolutely.
What do you need to get to the other side? Car. The apparel is the vessel of the impact I want to make. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I picked it is because I love it. And you need to love something and care about something because, like you said, you're going to fail. You're going to hurt. And if you don't have that passion, you probably aren't going to stand up to finish the fight. And I wanted to make sure that the vessel that I needed to have to get my messaging out there was something I was passionate about. And that's how the brand became to be. And through that, I've learned that I do love this as well. And I've become addicted to the process and obsessed with the messaging that's parallel to that process, where I've lost money. I almost lost my life. I mean, the things that God has thrown at me, at times I sit there and I just smile. I had a dialogue. I'm like, God got a sick sense of humor. I have it tattooed, man plans and God laughs. And I'm like, God's my homie. I'll sit after a long day and I'll be like, bro, you're sick. The stuff I just went through today, but you know why I went through it. You know I went through it. Yesterday I was dealing with a lot of stuff, and And I sat in that front window. I wanted to cry. And I was just like, I've been here. I've fought this battle. I don't know the person or whatever the battle is, but I fought this battle. And I've survived 100% of my bad days. This is no different.
But that's how you can help people too. I mean, by sharing, I told you earlier when we first started this thing about people I look at who I describe as have lived a little, right? We all come from different backgrounds, different situations. That's everything that shapes us. But those are also the tools, whether it's business related or just people related. Those are the things we can do to help people. I wanted to ask you too. We hear this dinging in the background. We hear buses and motorcycles, things like that, which I love because we're in this urban setting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, East Carson Street. And how did you migrate to here? How did you physically land in this beautiful building? Because outside I took photographs. I love the architecture and everything about these big cities. And there's just so much work that was involved with it. Creating these places at one time with architecture. Yeah. You're in a cool building, you're in a cool location. How in the heck did you land here on planet Earth?
So at the time, I was dealing with some health issues, and I had a manufacturing facility that I lost based off of the health issues. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. There's more. I got to do more. I need to spread this message more. And at the time, my girlfriend worked 2 places over, and the owner is an incredible guy. And he was like, I think I found a spot for you. And he walked me over here one time. This used to be a Subway. And when I was a kid, like I said, I had the little sneaker thing, whatever you want to call it. Some call it an addiction. I was fine with that. And this used to be called Ace Athletics. Okay. And this was 2 stories. And I'd come down here to get my Air Force Ones. So the nostalgia of that threw me back where I'm like, I got to have this. Lo and behold, my health took a turn. I end up in the hospital, back in and out, surgeries, all of this. I think it was my 6th or 7th surgery. I signed the lease. And God bless all of the people that helped me. We built this store out in 2.5 months. I was in a wheelchair at times. We're laying floor. It was just, this was a passion project, and there were so many more people than just me to bring this together that I couldn't have done it without others, which is why, like you say, I'm passionate about others. I didn't pick my own name. So somebody out there knew what I would be. Someone out there helped me open that door from the other side that I'll never see. So I want to always return that favor, and I want to leave this space much like a person, better than I found it. And I hope we did that. I don't know how things will play out, but it's been a blessing to be here. The entire space was influenced by an art gallery that I used to go to when I'd go up into New York, and all of the art, we didn't suspend it from the ground, but the art would be 4 corners, and on both sides it would have a different portrait. And I was like, this is amazing. So when I look at clothes, everything that you see that's on the clothes was once a sketch of my art. So I was like, let's portray it as such. Now, mind you, it's not the exact same, and I didn't have quite the budget I wanted to build this way that I did. But it came out, and this is the penny version of it, the dollar store version of the store I wanted. But I'll mark my words, I'll have the store I want at some point. And then we can look back to this and be like, wow, I see it. I tell this story to people all the time. When I started this brand, I'll never forget, I had an ex-girlfriend whose brother was all into just work. He had all kind of tools. And I never knew how brands got their clothes in plastic bags. I was like, oh, it looks so cool. So I thought that I could do it, and I would take saran wrap with a heat gun. And I look back at these shirts, and I'm like, dude, no wonder why you sold those for $5. You know what I mean? But now it's that's all part of the process.
That's funny.
That's all part of it. You have to be horrible to be great. The thing is, a lot of people are so scared to be horrible. I was so scared to stay horrible. I'm scared to stay the same, whereas people are scared to change. And I'm the opposite. So I always try to tell people, if you can find the fear of staying the same, you'll always change. But you can't become complacent. You can't accept what is, because you'll never have what could be.
Isn't that the truth?
It's sad, but...
I'm the oldest guy in this room, obviously. And I love life. I love to learn every single day. I see something new, and I try to roll those thoughts and feelings, the smells, the look, every. I try to roll that into the marketing campaigns that I put together for clients, and it's the same thing. Life isn't really an age thing. I think it's a perspective. I think it's how you look at things.
Absolutely.
Being willing to fail and try again and do all these other things. What you're doing here is amazing. It really is.
I appreciate that.
And I'm glad we got together through, this introduction through Antonino. This is awesome. I love everything that you've got going here. I wanted to open this up real
Absolutely.
quick. So when you described the name, so I was looking on the website and I couldn't find that exactly, but you said the world deserves the good and the bad from every individual that walks this earth. It's what life is, a forever changing ballet between good and evil. That's really, really profound. And
that makes
really
me want to
well
cry,
written.
because I remember writing that, dude.
Yeah.
And it's you don't really appreciate good without evil.
Yeah.
And we all have both in us. And at times you have to pick one.
I'm mostly good with that.
But but you have to know you're bad to know what good is.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the thing. I mean, I pray for tough times. I don't pray for the good times, because it's easy.
Yep.
I know I don't get better in the good times. Yeah. And it is, man. Everything, like, I tell people this all the time. The most trusting thing you can do, in my opinion, is get in a car every day and drive. Because how many people do you pass on the streets, and you have to trust they're not going to just drive right into you. But if you can do that, then you can trust yourself to go do what you want to do. You can trust yourself to fail. And one of I say it every time I pray. I put it on a hoodie and gave it to my basketball team and all my friends. It says losses, lessons, and blessings. Right. And when you say that, please help me on the direct quote. You've said it a few times, that life is what?
Well, in my opinion, life is a gift, for one thing. And the other piece is the people who have lived a little.
Lived a little. Yeah. So, and here's where I'll challenge that. I think lived a little and lost a lot. And why I say that.
That's a great qualifier to the end piece of this package. I agree with you.
Oh, maybe I shortcutted you that. No, I love that. We're in tune. We're in tune.
That, for real. That's really cool.
And I just look at it because only through losses, I tell people this all the time. In life, you take the test and then the lesson comes. And unfortunately, most of the time, we fail the test. And we don't always get another chance at taking that test. Right? So if we don't go and share those lessons from our loss, knowing we may not take that test again, someone out there will take that test. And now they have the answers, or at least a study guide to hedge against answering that question correctly. So that's why I look at it that way, and I'm thankful. I look forward to my losses. They hurt, but like it's a warrior smiles at the time he's about to go to battle, because he knows what can happen. Yeah. And it's like, I'm ready for this. I've been here before. I'm not scared.
Prepared.
Exactly.
So the thing is, too, I think with, the listenership, this audience, somebody's going to hear this. And I think a lot of your story is going to resonate. They're in the same spot. Sometimes you're fearful of certain things. There's just all these unknowns. We don't have this crystal ball to help figure everything out. You just got to go with it. Yep. And you got to, from the mentoring, the foundational pieces, I think that all of those wired together evolved into what you are, at least up to this point in your life. Same thing with Antonino. You got a young guy coming out of Pitt with ideas and aspirations, and a really smart guy who can pull technology together.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, it's solutions oriented. He's able to draw from not only how he was raised and where he was schooled and all these other pieces, but what Antonino brings about is it's amazing stuff.
Yep.
So I had a couple things about those quotes that are
Absolutely.
on there that lead right into your videos. And if you hadn't checked them out, what is the Instagram feed again?
It's at NOLAC, NOLAC Nation, NATION.
All right. So if you hadn't been there, check check it out.
Right. I appreciate that.
No, it's
Definitely,
cool
yeah.
because it's all there. So you said life is a compilation of moments. Embrace them when you're in them. That's the heat of the battle. Those are the good times, the bad times, the sorrows, the failures, the successes. Embrace them regardless of what they are. Everything you said, I only pulled 3. But seriously, you got all kinds of inspiration on there, and then you follow it up with video.
Right.
It's really well done. It's
I
quick and
appreciate
easy
that.
and clean. You got another one. You said, if you're alive, you're in the game, give it your everything. It's the truth. You got a lot of walking zombies out there that really haven't found themselves, unfortunately. But understand, if you're alive, you're in the game. Give it everything. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think Antonino, when he and I get involved with projects and things like that, and we start working, we go hard to make this whole thing come together and work. And I think it's probably the same with everything that you're involved with. I can just, again, we hadn't met before. This isn't all rehearsed or anything. We're just flying by the cuff here. But I really love the vibe and the piece of the story that you share. One last little quote that I thought was super meaningful is, a caring heart can change a life. And that goes back to that mentoring, clear back to Victor from the start. That little bit of investment that he made in you.
Oh yeah.
You can't quantify that. You can't put a dollar figure on
Not
anything
at all.
like that.
Can't do it.
So yeah, what would you? So the people who watch this and they are led to do something bigger. Okay, what kind of advice would you give them, just based on some of the little life experiences you have?
Get out of your head and get into life. It's all good and well to think, but sometimes you gotta put the thinking on pause and act. And I know incredible thinkers, and then I know incredible doers. And it's the doers that shift cultures. The thinkers are great, don't get me wrong, but the reason I dropped out of college, it was full of theorists and no practitioners.
Right.
I want to learn from somebody that came from their job and is decompressing by venting to me about their job, but I'm learning. I'm learning their hardships that day in the classroom and how to adapt this curriculum to what he or she just went through. And at that stage, that's what I tell people. You have to just act.
Right.
You have to go take the risk because you'll learn losses through that risk. That's the beautiful part of it.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most inspiring things from like all your quotes and even what you just said now is like, in my head, when I listen to those quotes and even what you just said now, like get out of your head and get into the game.
Yep.
It's all about being present. And I struggle with that. I'm always like, I swear I must have ADHD or something. I am like,
oh, I do. You probably do.
It's like I am like all over the place
Yeah.
in like 4 different directions. And it's like, but just focus on what you can do now.
Yep.
Be present. Take small steps, one step at a time. And, your whole thing about fear and like, people having this fear of taking a risk. It's like, yeah, I have fears too. But like my biggest fear is regret. Like I don't want to be in my 60s sitting at home saying, I wish I would have tried this. I wonder what this could have been.
Right.
I would rather have tried and failed than not have tried at all. And
that's exactly it.
That's my mentality.
That's the best part of it is,
Yep.
it's real now. You're out of your head.
Yep.
You have an answer. And if you don't like that answer, then try again. If you don't try again, you don't really want it. And I tell people this all the time. I'm sick. I am sickly resilient. If I want that thing, you will have to kill me before I quit. I can't quit on something I believe in.
Right.
And even it's bad. I'll tell your viewers, don't be like me. Just have a little bit of me in you so you start. Because it will keep me up at night. Yeah. I'm like, I got to figure this out. I know if it's in my gut, I believe it. And I tell people this all the time. If it's in your heart, you're stuck with your heart. Listen. Like, you have to listen to your heart. Right. It's in you forever. And sometimes if you don't listen to it long enough, then you're carrying around this corpse. And exactly like you said, a zombie, what's a zombie? You don't have a heart anymore. And it's sad because I see that and I'm like, I can't accept that. I don't know you, but I can't accept that. I know you're great. I know everybody walking this earth has a unique skill set, something that they're genius at, but they didn't have a Victor Curdy. They didn't have a mom and dad. They didn't have an Antonino. They didn't have somebody there to say, kid, you can do this. And that's all I really want to be for people is I want to sit down, I want to put my life on pause and say, okay, what do you want to be? Okay, we'll start. And I tell people, because when I opened this store, I wanted to give everybody a piece of myself. And I realized, whoa, there's nothing left. I can't do this. So now when people come in, I posted something on my personal page. When people come in and they ask for advice, the first thing I ask them, did you start? Because if you didn't start, I'm sorry, my time's too valuable. I can't give it to you until you have more and you took the risk in yourself, because you're hedging that risk on me and you want me to give you a blueprint when you're not even willing to show up and starting.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's foundational, just like we keep talking about. There's nothing to build from if nothing's established.
You're just in your head.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not looking for perfection.
Right.
We're just looking for taking the initiative to take that first step. That's how entrepreneurs are wired.
Absolutely.
Not everybody has that, you know. Again, I look back at some of the things that Antonino has run with. And it's funny because we did a podcast interview a few weeks back, and after the post interview, we had these different conversations with he's actually a client and a friend, and it was a really good thing.
Yeah.
But there was something that stemmed from that, another like possible business idea.
Yeah.
And I told the guy, I'm like, listen,
Wrong with
Antonino is not going to be able to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
he
didn't.
He stayed up all night thinking this thing through, and
love
they're
that.
ready to roll with some new ideas and stuff like that. But it's not everybody's wired that way, and that's what makes it exciting. And that's why I love being part of this whole thing too.
No,
It's a lot of fun.
I wanna ask Antonino if I can.
Yeah, go for it.
Whenever something like that strikes you, what moves you after? What is it? Is it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know it's not money.
No, it's passion. It's. I always tell people, we work with a lot of ATSAP is my software company that I run, and we work with a lot of very early stage startup companies. And these kids, these boys, girls, older, all different walks of life, 9 times out of 10 they have no money for this. They can't to afford what it actually costs to build that software mobile app. They can't afford.
Yep.
What attracts me to them is their passion. Is they have this idea, and when they come in, they tell me about their idea, their eyes just light up. And I am willing to go to bat for those people, because I know like these people, come hell or high water, are going to try to get this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
And like I respect that. I don't know if I told you, but I had a previous startup company that was a mobile application company. It failed.
Yep.
And I know that feeling. And that's how I kind of shifted into consulting, because I wanted to learn from my experience, help people kind of, get off the ground and not make the same
those
mistakes.
losses.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's like, and that right there is invaluable. Like the experiences I share with these clients sometimes are invaluable. Like right before we came here to record this, I had a meeting with a client, and one of the applications that we built for them, their kind of revenue model was very similar to a revenue model that I had in a previous company of mine. And I said to her, I was like, look, I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do, but speaking from my experience, this isn't going to work.
Right.
And people take that value because it's like, I've been there, I've tried this out. And it's like, in my opinion, that's the whole purpose of this Boss Juice show, is to talk about our experiences and others' experiences and kind of learn from people's mistakes. Because people have this mentality in their head that they listen to people like Mark Cuban, Elon Musk, and they're extremely successful. And of course they are. We want to celebrate people's success. I'm all about that. But if you actually look at their story, 9 times out of 10, they failed, and then they finally succeeded. I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do, is read books about entrepreneurs and learn their story. That's how this idea kind of came about, because it's like failure after failure after failure, and they just never gave up.
Can't.
And that's like one of the kind of like flip side questions I want to send back to you is, obviously you are where you are now, but you had failures. You kind of talked about that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
do you mind sharing some of those failures for our listeners to kind of just say like, hey, like, look, like,
Oh, man.
success isn't always easy and whatnot.
I'll be honest, I don't even know what success looks like. I just know what it feels like.
Right.
So I don't take the labels of others being successful to heart, and I don't take the labels of others saying I'm a failure to heart. I know what I am, and it's forever changing. There's days where I do feel like a failure, and there's days where I feel like the most successful person in the world. There's times that I have failed but felt successful in my failures because I tried. And I mean, I can't pinpoint a single failure that stands out because I'm thankful for them all. But
Right.
I mean, we can go from almost losing my life. I lost my whole manufacturing shop. I lost my car. I mean, I was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And you sit back and you're like, okay, I'm still here. I'll figure it out. And it goes back to what you said. I mean, it's keep on going. When I say these things, these mantras, these quotes, like, they're in my heart. They're in my DNA. They're coded. So when I say it, I mean it.
Right.
If I'm there with you, I'm there with you. I'm sorry. I'm unapologetically passionate. It's what my shirt says. I'm not sorry. But if I sat back and every time I failed, I looked at the odds, I wouldn't get out of bed. I don't look at odds. I don't believe in being an underdog. And I don't know if you curse, but fuck anyone's projection of being an underdog.
Right.
I'm me. I'm always going to be the best version of myself because I can control my effort. So if you project something on me, I'm not responsible for that, good or bad. And in the times that I truly feel successful, it has nothing to do with currency. It has everything to do with what I overcame in regards to the odds. Only I know how hard they were for me to overcome. It's, you look at sports. All right, March Madness is coming around. What are the odds? I don't know. I don't know because I don't know what's in those kids' hearts. The St. Peter's of last year, like no one thought they could win.
Right.
But those kids have heart and passion. You can't quantify it. You can't. There is no algorithm in the world that says X plus Y equals this.
Right.
Winner, loser. No. I'm betting on that kid. I'm betting on him. Once I meet you, it's what you said about the people that came to you with an idea and not a dollar. You don't need a dollar, kid. Those dollars will rain from the sky once people realize your passion and will to keep going. I will not quit. Can you back that? Oh, yeah. I'm putting my money on the guy in the fight to the death that says he won't quit. He might die and I'll lose, but I know he didn't quit. I know he didn't drop his head and say, I might lose. No, I'm going to find out. And it cost him his life, but I'm cool with that. I'm good with that. That's how I look at it. Is like, if I die and I gave it everything, I'm fine. I can rest in peace, whatever you believe in, peace in heaven, whatever you believe in. But I can't, like you said, I can't wake up in a day and say, yeah, I'm just not going to try today. I'm going to take a me day. And it's like, you could take a me day, but focus on something else. If work's on my mind too much, I'm working out 6 hours that day. I'm getting in my head. I'm writing. I started writing a book because I'm like, I got to get stuff out. I got to clear some room up here, and I got to get some stuff on paper so I can take in some new information. It's just...
What goes back to that point earlier about that little taste of a win. And all of a sudden, things are different. And that's one of the things that I think we want to do is give people that hope that they can win. They're going to bump into the right people. And you mentioned, too, a whole bunch of different times about God having a plan.
Always.
Your plans they're laughable. Everybody's plans are laughable.
That's exactly
but you can't deny the other side of that.
Nope.
And
I don't believe
cool
necessarily everything's predestined. But at the same time, I don't know. My favorite book's The Alchemist. And I have McTub tattooed. And it was written. And I really do believe that at times we sit there and I'm like, this is your path. Just trust. Trust you. And it goes back to your heart and all those other things. Trust. Find something that you truly believe in. But I tell people, make sure it's yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't externalize your belief too much. Internalize it, and then you'll start to realize what's real and what's not based off of what you feel and who you are, as opposed to people consistently telling you what you are.
Yep. I mean, that's one of my biggest issues, growing up was I always would look at like successful people, athletes, businessmen, and be like, oh, if only I was them. And it's like, you have to have that mentality out of your mind because they were just like you one day.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the hardest part is
Right.
like getting out of your own head and trusting yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I
It's
think
not
there's
easy.
two pieces to that too. I think to a fault over the years, like I told you, I worked in the corporate world for 20 plus years. And honestly, I would put different men and women on these pedestals because I thought, man, they were hired as the CFO and they got to have this and that. And, they really have it together. And then within 3 years, they're gone. And you find out that there were all these things that were really they weren't so great. And I'm thinking, man, I'm the kind of person that I've always put people way up on these pedestals and let them knock themselves off of it in my mind, But yeah, I'm a person who believes in people. I believe in situations, and again, maybe sometimes to a fault. And that's where that little bit of dreaminess that you talk about too, in some of your quotes that you have on there, those inspiring quotes. The dreams are real.
Oh yeah.
You got to run. You got to run after them.
And if not, you got to find out if they're not.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I say.
That's true. That's
a dream's
really
only
true.
a dream if you don't chase it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I think something, I'm like, ugh. Like if I see a girl, I'm like, man, I think I should date her. I'm going to go try because I'll probably get a drink thrown in my face and be like, well, that was a poor approach.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I'm going to try. At least I have something tangible to go on now, as opposed to, I don't know how many people you guys know that, you a long week, you're at the bar and they only talk about the past. I would have done this if I didn't get hurt, if I didn't.
Gosh.
And I'm like, dude, I'm going to be honest. If we're not talking about the present and the future, I don't care. Because if you're stuck in the past, I know you're not going to do anything in the present or the future.
No, nobody's moving ahead.
That's exactly it.
So Antonino, what else you got for this young man here?
I have to say this would be a nice little time to take a little break and introduce. So, Jared, to your left,
Oh, yeah.
is we got Honey Bloom Honey Water. It's a really cool water drink.
Which one's this one? What's poured? I want to try it.
So that one is, I believe, the citrus vanilla.
Let's try this.
Give it a little taste there, but
They've sponsored us before too.
yeah,
at
they sponsored our
at
Possible
your big event.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
It's water?
Yeah, it's like a flavored water thing.
That's good. I was like, that's good. Because it
Every
has just
episode.
enough of a sweet taste to it. It's not overpowering, but I would never guess this is water. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Oh, that's why it's got the added sugar. I was like, okay. I'm trying to think in my head. I'm like, I have a taste profile. I'm like, there has to be some sort of
Something in
sugar
there.
in this.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
That's
But,
beautiful, though.
Yeah,
They
good
got nice
company, good
packaging, nice
people.
branding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
And-
clean. The aesthetic looks good.
available at Whole Foods and stuff like that. But I actually, want to kind of, because you have a very nice, like, I'm going to call it artistic vibe, artistic eye. So one of the things I like about that bottle is the way it's kind of like curved in or
The
whatever.
shape, yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
when you're designing different things, like, excuse me, this is my ignorance on not understanding like the kind of fashion space or whatever. But when you're designing different clothing, stuff like that, does the shape, like, how, like I always like, clothing, like the way like it sits on people's body, like, like when you're designing something, does that shape kind of?
Yeah, so this was, I'll take you back, whenever I started in the saran wrap with the heat gun, I was like, I gotta be better. And at that point in time, I remember I took a little trip to Joann Fabrics. I bought the heavy duty Singer, and I just took apart every piece of clothing that I liked. And I would try to cut fabrics and put together that piece the way it fit prior. And I'd put the piece together, and then I'd put mine back together and be like, is this close? And then what I would do would be altering a fit. So say maybe I liked the width and the chest and the shoulders of a shirt, but the length wasn't enough. I would take that shirt apart, alter the pattern in length and width at the bottom, and say, oh, I like this better. So I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just taking what was and making it better for me. And one thing over time that I realized, and why, I mean, again, I've heard it, but I'm also going to assume in continuance that athletes wear my product because they fit them a little bit better. When I modeled, I was what was called a fit model.
Okay.
So you're a specific size. And I used myself to make a lot of my patterns because of that. And now I'm not built the exact same way. I'm a little bit heavier up top and things of that nature. But those patterns now have been in the works for 7-8 years. And that's something, but fashion changes. You know, I would say within the next couple of months, you'll start to see everything go baggy again. Whereas before it was tapered chinos, tapered denim, everything was a little bit tighter. I think we're going to go back to a baggier look in the next six months or so. By fall time, everybody will be wearing baggy clothes again.
Interesting.
Because it is cyclical.
Right.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, everything we do is influenced by something that's already been done. Subconsciously or not, I know that I'm not inspired because of me. I'm inspired much like we were saying, everything around me, everything that I've taken in, designers that I love that I don't even know I love, but subconsciously I'm storing their information.
Right.
And so, you know, it's one of those things where I love to create, but I've missed a lot too. I mean, I've been working on making a pair of denim for 4 years now, and you don't see any denim in here.
Right.
So it's, you know, it's a process, but those are the stories people won't know. The denim will come out and people will be like, I hate them, I love them, and I'll be like, cool, it took me 8 years.
Oh, it's like, you speak like design, you know, like, what movie? Sonic the Hedgehog that came out like in like 2019. Those dudes worked on that, you know, I say dudes, but that team worked on that movie for like 5 years or something like that. And then all of a sudden they put the trailer out and they get roasted for the look of the hedgehog. And like they go back to the drawing board. I'm like, I would like, and like people don't, like to your point, people don't realize those guys like put their blood, sweat, and tears into this thing, and people just like laid into them. And they're like, you know, do you really care? But design is such an interesting thing. On
the adverse side of that though, I would tell people, don't worry so much about the details that bother you. I consult for a multitude of brands and help them develop their products, their patterns, etc. And that's the hardest thing, to not be a perfectionist, because it's not real when it comes to a lot of things, because it's so relative. And in any subjective matter with clothes, you could put a hoodie out there and 10 people love it, 10 people hate it. Okay, well, it's more so who do you want to listen to? And much to their credit or discredit, I don't know how much they changed Sonic.
Right.
I loved the movie. I thought it was awesome. That was a COVID watch for me, actually.
Yeah.
But I'd be like, no, that's right. Okay. Like, we took the time. You just don't like it because you have this altered image because you played the game as a kid. Well, everything has evolved. So now we're evolving it, staying true. I think that the only time you can really, really critique something is if you don't credit its heritage. And I mean, I think they did a good job in crediting their heritage and the originality of what Sonic was.
Sure.
But I mean, you have Jim Carrey in it. What do you think's going to happen? The guy is wild.
Yeah.
He's an incredible, charismatic person. So it's like he overshadowed Sonic, in my opinion, that whole movie.
Right,
so do we care about Sonic as much? It's not even a real person. It's just a voice in an animated version of what we saw as a kid. So I look at those things differently, where I would never come after somebody to critique that.
Sure.
But on a shirt, I'd be like, why'd you use a black button?
Yeah. The design has just become so interesting to me because, like, you know, talking about like the waters, but like on this show, we kind of, one of the things we're trying to do is get like a new drink on every episode.
Yeah.
To kind of just like, because Bosch Juice, the title kind of flows in nice, but it's like a fun little thing. They let people try a different drink or whatnot. But like, as we've been checking out different brands and different, you know, beverage companies, the design behind like all the different companies is just intriguing. Even like in the software space, like UI UX design is like a huge thing. It has to look nice, be appealing, and it's just, you don't realize how important design is in your everyday life.
Great design goes unnoticed.
100%.
That's how I look at it. If I walk in a room and I'm like, this feels right, you did a great job. But also, alternative to that, I sit in there and I'm like, you didn't really think this, or maybe you overthought that, and I love this too. But that's how I look at things. There really is no right or wrong when it comes to design in my mind. It's more so, can I get into the head of the designer and think what their desired outcome was? And if I don't know the desired outcome, I don't know if you hit your goal or not.
Right.
So if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I'm just me.
That's where I look around this boutique style setup that you have, and it's more gallery-esque.
Yeah.
You know, like you had mentioned before, you said in New York, you saw some things, but like when I look around and I see the colors and the inspiration and things like that, it's funny because that has like permeated out of you into some of this styling.
It's
cool.
Yeah, it's good and bad. Because at times, contrary to what I said, you look at it and when someone doesn't like something, you're like, they don't like me. And it's like, bro, they just don't like what you made. Get out your head, man.
Nah,
you're being
like
soft.
That's it.
And see, that's the thing
That's
there was a level of anonymity that I had in the brand until I opened the store. And I did that on purpose because multiple times I would be out in public and I'd have NOLAC on and people would come up to me and tell me about myself. They'd be like, I know the owner. And I'm like,
do you?
Oh, so then I let them just speak, and I was like, wow, okay. I'm what I think I am in perception to these people. They just don't even know who I am, which is even better in my opinion.
Right.
And now, obviously, I've put my face out there a little bit more because I think people need to see the reality of how flawed I am as a human, but how consistent I'll say the same things in those losses and with those flaws. No one's perfect. I'm out here. I just told you I almost cried in the front of my store yesterday. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I still have failures every single day. It's just that, like I said, I've learned resiliency. I've learned that I've survived every single failure that I've had. Okay, you take your 15 minutes a day, feel bad for yourself, sulk, pick your head back up, say amen, and get back to the work.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what I do. And that's why I revealed the veil of who I am a little bit more and put that out there, because everything needs a face. And you might not always get to pick who that face is going to be. But this thing, I got to. It's my thing. I should be the face for now. And Lord willing, this gets bigger than any human could be a face for it. And it just takes its own energy and keeps rolling.
And that's the whole thing that I think people kind of miss out on is I'm a technology guy. I'm a software guy, so I know it's weird coming from me saying this, but the human connection in business is so important. Like one of the things I always kick myself about not doing earlier is like doing the Bike Club podcast and kind of being more on camera about AdSap and entrepreneurship and app development, because putting that stuff out there builds a reputation and people recognize my face. They recognize what we're saying. It builds that
what you stand for.
Exactly. It builds that connection, and I think a lot of times my generation, in particular, has this idea that it's just about, putting information out there and getting people to buy a product or a service. And it's like, but like they're actually buying you, like they're buying your message, and it's like that human connection is so important in business. And I think we're lacking that a bit now kind of in society.
Well, that's where I think a situation like this, where you are, it's not like they ordered online from somewhere and have no idea the story behind everything else. I think that's what makes this more valuable and more appealing, is because there's a mission behind this, a mission that you're sharing. Now they're going to get to hear more of this story. Those 35,000 plus people that you're connected with are going to get to see and hear more. And I think they're going to learn not only about your business, but they're going to learn things about you. And that's what we wanted to draw from this.
Absolutely.
No,
they're
and I'm
get
thankful.
to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm thankful.
They're
going to
get to know us a little bit better and say, what is this cool guy doing with these two clowns? Right?
All right, relax. Never that. I mean, it goes back to that ballet. Is life is rhythmic, man, and when you catch a vibe, you're gonna dance to it.
Yep.
That's how I look at it. So, when you connect with people, even I've said no to people in business that have gotten me left in places off of planes because I'm just like, it don't feel right. I'm not mad at you. You're taking it personally. I have a shirt that literally says it's only business. Don't take it so personally.
Right.
But at times you have to make a personal decision in business. It's not personal, but it's my business, and I'm the one that has to live with this decision.
Yeah,
we just talking about
like
that?
right before you came in.
That's energy.
Dylan was setting up, and we were sitting there talking. We're just kind of like, I don't want to say bitching, but a little.
You could say it.
Yeah,
I mean,
was like,
that's your 15 minutes, man.
Yeah, it's like
get it.
I was telling about just how as my software business is growing. We're hiring more people, and it's like, I'm running into issues that I never had in the past, because it's like clients or customers are saying X, Y, Z, and I'm like, okay, now I got to deal with this, and I'm having these conversations, and they're like, I got to tell these people, like, you this is your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You're working, you're going home. That's fine. But like, this is my livelihood. I was like, and so like when people put a bad review or they get upset, like it reflects on me in a way, you know? And it's like, I take that personally, you know? So
it's tough too, but as you scale, you'll realize it's not personal. It's about them, not you. And I mean, I'll put it out there in my business. I had a situation yesterday. I told you that I wasn't where I wanted to be mentally, and I had an outburst with somebody that I cared about, and I was like, I sat here, and that overshadowed what I was going through because it bothered me so much, and I had to apologize to them. I was like, this had nothing to do with you. You didn't deserve that. I shouldn't have had that outburst. What can I do? And the person obviously is like, oh, I didn't take it personally, but I was like, okay. But I still wanted to make sure of that because at times, I tell people this always, watch how someone treats you when they don't get what they want from you. And that tells you all about their character. So now I hold myself to that standard, and I don't attach myself to a desired outcome in any business situation or anything because I don't want to have a flawed perspective of what's going on because I didn't get what I wanted.
Right.
No, you get what you deserve. And sometimes deserving of anything is delayed, and that's the test. Do you really deserve it? Right. How long will you wait and work to go get it? And that's where I don't look at things personally anymore. You can't. I mean, if I can tell you anything, you can't. It's not about you. It's about how that person felt and how they view themselves. And odds are they could have went through 4 or 5 more channels to get the desired outcome they wanted. But they were like, nah, you know what? I'm going to hide behind this keyboard. I'm going to tell the world that they're the problem. And then they might actually believe that. But that's probably 1 out of 500 views. It's like, let it go to the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's honestly like a good kind of leeway into like the end of the episode here. We're like, I think about almost at like 50 minutes or so.
So as kind of we wrap up, if there's something we didn't hit, let's nail that. Well, like
I'm not one to talk about myself without prompts.
Listen, you gave really good advice, I think, to a lot of people that might be in that same boat. And I think we've shared different pieces of our backgrounds, and it's weird. People who view this, they're going to see common threads one way or the other. It doesn't. Yeah. This isn't an age thing or a generational thing or whatever. This is about the likeness of people.
Yep.
I've never met you before. However, there's a lot of the philosophical things that we both
the synergies there.
On.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Antonino and I, we hit it off from day one. We've just been friends, about 5 years now, something like that.
Wow.
6 years.
And it's because it's out of respect. Mm-hmm. It's out of just love for the person too.
Yeah.
You really got to care about a person and their well-being and everything else. And
I got on my pants. Mutual. A little love goes a long way.
It's the truth.
That's the truth.
That's a foundational emotion for me. Is love, and I think it gets a bad rep sometimes because exactly what I said earlier. Watch how people act when they don't get what they want. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Be in love and lose it. It's called heartbreak.
Yep.
And a lot of people let that break them entirely as opposed to let that build them up. Mm-hmm. And through losing love, you actually learn how to love, in my opinion. It's a detached feeling. It's not, I don't need this thing. I don't want this thing. I feel this thing. And that doesn't include people. That includes what you do. Right. That includes yourself. Can you look in the mirror and say, I genuinely love who I am? And if you can't, start there. Yeah. Change who you are. If you love yourself, you're going to change the world. Right. I think a lot of times, especially now with social media, we live in this comparison world. It's a bubble. It's like, bro, you're one of one, baby. Why are you worried about them? Mm-hmm. What are you worried about? You're afraid to be you. You ever go into a room and you look and you're like, there's 10 of the same guy, girl here. Like, I know one of you is an imposter. You all can't be the same. You all can't dress the same.
Right.
And then you start to realize, oh, so you go into a room of imposters and you look like the imposter. Change the room. That's what I do. I'm a bouncer. I'm like, I do not like this room. I do not. Oh, this one feels good. And then the room gets better, and you're like, I've done my time here. I need to go to another one. It's jobs now. I think that a lot of times people stay in the same environment too long, and they get comfortable. And I'm sure you see it in tech, but I correct me if I'm wrong, but under my assumptions, I would assume that people in tech move jobs more than most, because
Very
the
quickly.
opportunities are there because of innovation. And that innovation forces the individuals associated with it to evolve themselves. And you see them move their place. I mean, if you go over to Bakery Square and you talk to people, most of them aren't from Pittsburgh.
Right.
They're transplants. They're here for Google. They're here with something affiliated with Carnegie Mellon. And you learn. And then you knock on that door a year later and they're gone. You're like, this is crazy. Why am I still here? And I question all the time. Now, I'm in Pittsburgh because I love it, and there's not a lot of people that are doing what I'm doing here, and I want to be a Victor Curdy to others. Mm-hmm. Even if it maybe slows down what I think I deserve. I don't really deserve anything. I'm thankful for everything. But I've had opportunities to leave. I've had opportunities to go build in other cities. But I want to do the best I can do here. And until I feel that I have, I'm going to stay here. And then I'm going to leave. Then I'm going to become a better version. Then I'm going to come back and really make an impact.
Well, that's where this boutique style clothing store that you have, it's more than just that. And that's the same thing with the Boss Juice podcast.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we want to establish too.
Yeah.
It's more of a platform to capture and share, make people feel comfortable, make people understand that, listen, man, you are not in this alone.
Right.
We've all been there. We've been through these things. It's just it's a matter of finding and affiliating yourself with the right kind of people that are going to help propel you.
Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
push you down, the ones that are going to grow you and build you.
Yeah, it takes a village, man.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. No, you're spot on.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people, they hate to admit that. I don't know you anything. You don't.
Right.
I don't know anybody anything, but I'd probably give them everything if they needed it.
Yeah.
And that's just, is switching that perspective is something that motivates me.
Yeah.
Can we shift the culture of how people look at things? And I don't blame a lot of people, because if you feel the world's been against you forever, it's hard to walk into a room and think people aren't against you.
Right.
And that's tough to shift that. Where I coach is, I tell them all the time, I coach in McKeesport, and I tell them why I love basketball is it's objective. I don't care what team we play. You know what that scoreboard says at the beginning of every game? 0-0. Yeah. We're not down 50 because of where we grew up. We're not down 50 because we don't have love or support that they do or whatever the other team has. Nope, 0-0. Let's go get this dub. Let's keep it moving. Yeah. And that's the thing. There's so many teachers in this world. And when I say teachers, I mean sports, business, school, whatever you love, there's lessons in that. But it's on us as individuals to facilitate those lessons from the inanimate. Can we do that? Can we pull the message out here, translate it to a kid? Because kids are easily impressed, right? Good and bad. And if you think about it, I hate to say this, but if you touch on, I don't know if you know popular culture right now with Ja Morant, and they said he allegedly was holding a gun. Right. I'm like, okay, cool. So you have the NBA mad at Ja Morant for holding a gun, but let's think about music right now and what's in every music video and what they say in the music videos. But there's no one suspending them, but instead we're pushing that on the youth. But then we're mad at somebody because the NBA labels him as a role model. He's not allowed to do that now. And it's like, he didn't break any laws. The cops came out and said he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
But that's not acceptable. And this not only is acceptable, but is being pushed into certain areas and communities, telling them that this is what's right. And that double standard, man, I look at it and it makes me sad. It makes me sad because now you have people more confused. What is right? And then it's only as right as the governing force says it is. And that's, again, it takes me back to why I question authority so much. Yeah. Who says you're in charge? Who made you the boss? Oh, well, we are operating under our sanction. Yeah, well, I'm still a human. Right. What rights did I sign away? Yeah. And then what rights are actually objective and what are subjective? And unfortunately, most things in life are subjective. And if you get the ruling panel to say this is wrong, unfortunately, it's wrong. And that's that.
And that's why I think, freedom of speech is so important, because the ability to be able to question authority, higher ups, individuals, your boss, like whoever it may be, is so important. Like, if people in the past didn't question how things were doing, innovation would never happen. Like freedom of speech is so important.
It's the same thing too with this entrepreneurial spirit too. I think a lot of people have the same values and ideals, right? And I think that it's important to, I won't say be the nonconformist, but you got to kind of walk to the beat of your own drum sometimes. And that's why people exit the corporate world. I'm a perfect poster child, you know. There were things I really loved and things that I think made a lot of sense, and it was a great 20-plus year long paid internship. Well,
I like
but
that.
now you can help people. Now you can serve people in different ways, and I think that's what this is all about. So really, as we kind of wrap up this interview, number one, thank you for inviting us down here. I think
awesome.
this
Absolutely.
is awesome. Love the space. Love where
it means
you're at.
the world. Thank you.
Love the mission behind everything that you're doing here. Is there any final words, any final thing you want to share?
I just have
Let's do this.
one more question.
Yeah.
And it's like we've been asking all of our guests this kind of question. And it's a question I ask every time I meet a new entrepreneur or business owner. If you could give one word of advice to a young entrepreneur starting a business or, you know, starting their career, what would it be?
Resilience. That's it. That's all
Love
it
that.
takes. Because if you have it, once you start, you'll never stop. So it's resilience. But I would actually say, much like you said on a foundational, start and be resilient. That's it. I mean, when I look at anything, once you start, you can pivot. And a lot of great companies didn't finish where they started, but they started, and that's why they finished, or why they exist, we'll say, more so.
Right.
Most companies aren't finished, and that's good. Like the finished companies we won't speak on because that's a true failure, right?
Absolutely.
But I mean, much like you said, there's countless CEOs and owners, founders that have a compilation of failures that then they were resilient.
Right.
And now they're the ones on podcasts like us talking and teaching. But honestly, it's the resiliency, man. How many times can you cry and get back up? How many times can you laugh to stop from crying? How many times can you say, I begged for this opportunity, don't be scared now? How many times can you look in the mirror and be like, I am scared shitless. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm absolutely fucking lost. I'm so, but oh, you know what? I'm going to move. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get it done.
Well, we know that you're resilient.
Absolutely.
And you're not stepping backwards.
Can't.
We sure as hell aren't moving backwards either.
can't.
Antonino has a lot of different business ideas that he's juggling a lot right now.
Yeah.
I've got a lot on this plate, and that's the thing. We just together are going to keep pushing ahead. And again, got to thank you for everything.
Well, I appreciate both of your time.
Appreciate you taking us, and wish you all the best, man, with this thing.
Oh, it means the world.
Not only the apparel side of it, I get that. But this is so much more than that.
I'm thankful it is more, truthfully, because if it was just a business about profits, my business is about people. Yeah. You know, I switched the P's real quickly and realized, like, none of this matters without people. When I had my experiences with illness and fighting for life, I didn't worry about money. I didn't worry about cars. I didn't worry about jewelry. I worried about people. And that's all that matters. Yeah. What consumes? People.
Maybe there's another P to add into it. It's priority. You know?
I love it.
Seriously. Those priorities, you got to get them in order. And I think that's what will help with that foundation and leading to the resilience. And you just got to get out there and make mistakes. You got to attach yourself to the right
Make
people.
sure they're not too big. That's one thing that I do try to tell my kids. I'm like, make sure the mistakes aren't so big you can't recover.
Yeah.
And it's scary. In certain areas, you can't recover from some mistakes.
Sure.
So, tread lightly, take risks, but calculate them within a degree. You don't have to have all of the numbers perfect, but you have to have the general vicinity of where you could land, good and bad, based off of decisions. But then you got to just start jumping. I've never skydived, but I assume that you have a landing zone. You don't have a singular X, but you have the general vicinity. So when you jump, just know where you want to land. And then if you start seeing yourself go off, you know how to readjust. You know how to retarget. And then, yeah, okay, I landed a little bit outside. Okay, well, you're probably going to jump again to try to hit your target now, aren't you?
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not a skydiver. I'm never going to be
Me,
one.
I'm with you on that.
Great analogy,
but
but I'm not jumping out of a plane.
Yeah, I think.
I do love that analogy, though.
Part of me wants to, though. Part of me, now that we say that, I'm like, could I do it? We'll see.
Well, listen, I think this was amazing, and look forward to maybe spending some time together down the road. I think this was
absolutely
good.
Yeah. Follow up or even just some beers, man.
Absolutely.
I'll be good with anything. I just like catching up, and like you said, it's people in priority, and you guys are great people, and I want to make us getting back together a priority. I think that'll be great.
This is the Boss Juice podcast.
I love it. Thank you so much.
We had fun today, and look forward to many more of these.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jared. Appreciate
you both.
it.
I appreciate you.
Yeah. Good stuff. That was cool. Oh, good stuff.